In the dusty heat of the Arizona plains, the sun beat down relentlessly, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked earth. A lone cowboy rode slowly along the riverbank, scanning the horizon for any sign of life. The land was vast and unforgiving, stretching endlessly into the distance, with its rugged mesas and sparse vegetation. He was used to solitude, the quiet broken only by the soft clatter of his horse's hooves against the rocky soil. As he rounded a bend, a small figure caught his eye. A little girl, no older than 6 or 7, wandering aimlessly near the river. Her clothes were tattered, and the fabric hung loosely from her tiny frame. Dust clung to her hair, and her hands trembled as she reached out toward the water. Her eyes, wide and cautious, held a story of struggle far beyond her years. The cowboy dismounted quickly, approaching slowly so as not to frighten her. "Hey there, little one," he said gently, holding out a hand. The girl flinched but didn't run. Instead, she stared at him, unsure whether to trust this stranger who had appeared so suddenly on the empty plains. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small loaf of bread and a water skin. "Eat," he said softly, placing the food and water in front of her. She hesitated, her small fingers brushing the edge of the bread as if testing whether it was real. Then, with a quiet sniffle, she began to eat, nibbling carefully. He sat beside her, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. The sun filtered through the branches of a lone mesquite tree, casting dappled shadows over the pair. For the first time that day, the girl's body seemed to relax slightly, her hunger easing and her trust growing in small increments. As she ate, the cowboy noticed a delicate bracelet on her wrist, intricately braided and adorned with small turquoise beads. It was a piece of her heritage, a symbol of the Apache people. He realized this child was not just lost. She was a part of a proud, ancient culture that had survived in these lands for generations. His respect for her deepened, and he spoke gently, "Where's your family, little one?" She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears that reflected both fear and uncertainty. He knew he couldn't leave her alone. The plains were too dangerous, and she was too small to survive on her own. Over the next few days, he remained close, giving her food, water, and gentle reassurance. The girl began to follow him, hesitant but trusting, learning to walk beside him as he went about his daily chores. They settled near the riverbank where the water ran cool and clean, a rare blessing in the harsh desert heat. He made a small camp for her, gathering blankets and setting up a modest shelter. Her laughter, quiet at first, began to fill the air, a soft, musical sound that contrasted with the rugged silence of the plains. The cowboy felt a sense of responsibility he hadn't anticipated, a protective instinct for this small, fragile life. Word of the cowboy's kindness soon spread through the nearby Apache settlement. The tribe, cautious of outsiders but deeply connected through tradition, began to take notice. One morning, a figure appeared at the edge of the riverbank, a woman tall and graceful, her presence commanding yet gentle. Her eyes were wide, with both caution and gratitude, observing the cowboy carefully as he tended to the girl. The little girl ran to her mother, throwing herself into her arms. The woman's gaze softened slightly, and she approached the cowboy with measured steps. She spoke softly, almost ceremoniously, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "You fed my daughter. Now, by ancestral tradition, you belong to our family." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The cowboy froze, understanding the depth of the statement. It was more than a simple gesture of gratitude. It was a bond, sacred and binding, formed through his act of kindness. He had not only saved a child, but had become entwined with a people whose culture and honor demanded respect and loyalty. The woman studied him carefully, gauging his reaction. She wanted to see if he understood the responsibility that now rested upon him. The cowboy, usually self-reliant and wary of attachments, felt a stirring in his chest he hadn't known before. He nodded slowly, realizing that this encounter had changed him in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. It was no longer just about helping a lost child. It was about honoring a tradition, respecting a culture, and forming a connection that transcended words. As the days went by, the cowboy and the Apache mother worked together to care for the girl. He learned about her people, their customs, and their deep connection to the land. She taught him which plants could heal, how to track animals, and the stories of her ancestors. In return, he shared his own skills, riding, ranch work, and survival tactics in the harsh Arizona environment. The little girl watched, absorbing both worlds, learning that kindness could bridge cultures and that trust could create family where none had existed before. Evenings became a time of quiet reflection. The cowboy would sit by the fire, the girl curled up beside him, while her mother tended the small cooking fire. They spoke little at first, letting actions and gestures communicate their growing bond. Slowly, laughter replaced caution, and shared tasks became a rhythm of trust. The cowboy realized that he had found something rare on the plains, a family not bound by blood alone, but by honor, respect, and the promise of protection. The tribe began to warm to him as well, observing his genuine care and humility. Elders nodded approvingly when they saw him working with the child and her mother, recognizing the sincerity of his intentions. The cowboy understood that he was not just a visitor in their world, he was now a part of it. He had entered their lives as a stranger, but through compassion and courage, he had earned a place among them. By the end of the week, the bond was undeniable. The girl clung to him without fear, laughing freely as he lifted her onto his horse. Her mother watched, a gentle pride in her eyes, knowing that the ancestral tradition had been honored. The cowboy, once a solitary figure wandering the plains, now found himself woven into the fabric of a community that valued loyalty, love, and respect above all. His act of kindness had transformed a moment of need into a lifelong connection, one that would shape the lives of all three in ways they were only beginning to understand. Life on the ranch transformed quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. The once lonely cowboy now had daily company in the form of the Apache mother and her daughter. Each morning, the mother arrived at dawn, bringing with her knowledge of the land and its hidden rhythms. She showed him which herbs could heal, how to forage safely, and how to respect the cycles of nature that the plains demanded. The cowboy, skilled in survival but unversed in these ancient ways, listened intently, absorbing every lesson. Their conversations were soft but meaningful, a blending of two worlds that slowly intertwined as the days passed. The little girl thrived in this environment. Her laughter, once cautious and tentative, now rang freely through the cabin and across the open fields. She learned to ride alongside her new guardian, holding the reins with determination, her small legs barely reaching the stirrups. The cowboy watched with pride, marveling at her resilience and courage. He realized that his act of kindness had blossomed into something far greater, a family bound not by blood alone, but by trust, protection, and shared responsibility. The connection between them deepened with each shared chore and quiet evening. Their bond was also built on mutual respect. The Apache mother insisted on teaching the cowboy the ways of her people, sharing stories of ancestors, spiritual practices, and cultural rituals. He, in turn, taught her skills needed to navigate life on the ranch, tending animals, repairing fences, and surviving harsh desert storms. These lessons were exchanged in silence at times, with gestures and patient observation conveying more than words could. Slowly, they developed a rhythm together, a dance of shared labor, trust, and understanding. The little girl was the bridge between them, her curiosity prompting laughter and cooperation in equal measure. Outside their secluded haven, the world was less forgiving. Rumors began to spread among the nearby settlers about the unusual alliance between the cowboy and the Apache family. Whispers of suspicion and prejudice made their way to neighboring ranches. Some questioned the cowboy's judgment, wondering why he would align himself so closely with the local tribe. Yet he remained resolute, guided not by fear of gossip, but by the promises he had made and the sacred bond he had accepted. His commitment was unwavering, and the respect he showed to the mother and daughter silenced most skeptics over time. The days unfolded in a quiet routine, yet each moment carried weight. Meals were prepared together, chores completed side by side, and evenings spent under the expansive desert sky. The mother taught the cowboy the names of plants, birds, and stars, and how they could serve as guides or remedies. Each lesson strengthened the bond between them, creating a partnership founded on honor and shared duty. They worked with patience and care, aware that this newfound family required not only affection, but respect for traditions older than the ranch itself. Evenings became times of reflection and quiet conversation. Around the fire, the little girl would rest, exhausted from a day full of riding and learning. The cowboy and her mother would talk softly about the land, about life, and about the unspoken connection that had formed between them. He discovered an unexpected sense of peace in her presence, a grounding that made the harsh reality of the frontier more bearable. Her knowledge, her wisdom, and her unwavering moral compass reshaped his understanding of responsibility and loyalty. He began to see the world not just through his own eyes, but through theirs as well. The little girl became the heart of the ranch. Her happiness and curiosity breathed life into the cabin, making every corner feel warmer and more vibrant. She was fearless on the horse, her laughter echoing across the plains, challenging the silence that had once dominated the landscape. The cowboy found joy in teaching her, and in turn, she taught him patience, empathy, and the simple power of trust. Observing her growth, he realized that acts of kindness could ripple far beyond immediate consequences, shaping the lives of all involved in profound ways. The mother's presence was equally transformative. She was not merely a teacher, but a guardian of culture and tradition. She expected respect, but she also gave it freely, creating an atmosphere of equality and understanding. Their shared tasks, conversations, and routines formed a rhythm of life that was rich and fulfilling. Slowly, the other Apache families began to observe and accept him. They saw that he honored their child, embraced their traditions, and treated the family with unwavering integrity. By his actions, he had earned their trust and, more importantly, their respect. Despite the growing harmony, tension occasionally surfaced. The frontier was full of prejudices, and not everyone was ready to accept an outsider into the community. The cowboy faced judgment, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt, from other ranchers and settlers who didn't understand the bond he shared with the Apache family. But he remained unshaken, guided by principles stronger than fear or social pressure. He knew he had pledged not only to protect the child, but also to honor the family, a promise deeper than any obligation imposed by society. As the sun dipped behind the mesas one evening, painting the sky with gold and crimson, the mother stood beside the cowboy, watching the little girl ride across the open field. She smiled softly and said, "You saved my child. You honor us now, and in return, we honor you." The words carried a weight that transcended language, reflecting generations of tradition, loyalty, and sacred bonds. The cowboy felt a profound sense of belonging, a realization that his life had irrevocably changed. The Wild West had tested him before, but this was a test of heart and honor he would carry forever. By the end of the season, the bond between the three was undeniable. They had become a family, not through blood, but through courage, compassion, and shared responsibility. The little girl thrived in the love and protection surrounding her. The mother found trust in someone she had never known before. The cowboy, once a solitary figure wandering the harsh plains, discovered that true strength lay not just in survival, but in connection, loyalty, and respect. In the heart of the Wild West, amidst deserts and mesas, a family had been forged, a testament to the power of kindness and the sacred bonds of honor.